and getting YouTube and that brought online here this morning. So there we go. Welcome aboard, folks net tuning in over on the YouTube side here this morning. Do appreciate you guys tuning in. Folks net tuning in over on Beam. Good to have you aboard over on Pilled, over on Rumble, Kick, D-Live, wherever you may be tuning in from here on the morn. Do appreciate you guys being here as always. If you missed the opening stanza, we got off to a bit of an early start here this morning. Get through some of the news net from over the weekend as we traditionally do here. There's plenty of stuff going on over the weekend here. And of course, if you're coming in a little bit late and missed the weekend show, I'd encourage you to go back on the channel, check that out here. I also played the Zero Hedge debate in that from back on Thursday, talking about H-1B visas and things of that nature. So encourage you to go check that out. That being said, let's get into some of the rest of the news net here this morning. Some of the other stuff net we're going to get to, and let's see, get that fired up there. There we go. Also, on the broadcast here this morning, CZ calls Peter Schiff's tokenized gold a trust me bro asset. We'll get into what is going on there. Also get into watch modular energy pioneer Nano Nuclear begins drilling first reactor groundbreaking at the University of Illinois. That taking place back on Friday. Apparently it was a live event and did not get an opportunity to get over that on Friday, but nonetheless, we'll circle back to it. I'll also talk a little bit about Canada's economy will not survive a prolonged trade war with the United States. This on the heels of the shenanigans they pulled with the Ronald Reagan advertisement they pulled with selective editing and everything else. And Trump immediately fired back and says, yeah, all deals are off and you're back to the original tariffs net. That is since moderated, since they yanked the commercial apparently. And now he says, yeah, you know what? Because of your shenanigans, you get an extra 10% on top of that. We'll get into the details. Atlanta at the center of nationwide boom and rental application fraud. We'll talk a little bit about that. Also, get into rising DC uncertainty hits stressed homebuyers, dining demand. What is playing out in DC, what is otherwise known as Boomtown, isn't quite so boomy anymore, apparently. Also, Duffy threatens to strip California of ability to issue commercial driver's licenses. This on the heels of everything that's been playing out on our highways here with folks net coming in on H-1B visas and non-domiciled CDLs, all that good stuff. Another crash net taking lives net in California here recently. And when do we start holding some of these secretaries of state and high elected officials net in these various states accountable for their actions? Where are the criminal charges against them? I sincerely hope the families net go that route. And the Green Mirage, the hidden costs behind the electric car hype. We'll get into the details on that. Shouldn't really be too much of a surprise for those net who have tuned in regularly. America's population is dropping. Here's why it matters. We'll get into details there. And also, Bessent announces U.S.-China trade framework reached rare earth. Also, in regards to China, we'll get into that here in just a bit from yesterday when the details net were announced. And China's still on his Asian swing here as of late. So, that being said, let's get into the weather net here, get on with it here this morning, and let's get the old maps net brought up there, and there we go. Over to the maps net we go here to start your week. Out to the west we go here this morning. A little scatter net coming across Pacific Northwest here this morning. Otherwise, coming across top end of the country. A little scatter coming across Montana. A little bit over to the east side of the state into the Dakotas net there up along the Canadian border. See what sort of precip we're getting out of that here momentarily. Stretching all the way down into Nebraska, back to Wyoming. Folks net down across the southeast, southern Illinois, southern parts of Indiana, down across Kentucky, Tennessee, northern parts of Alabama, Georgia, through the Carolinas. Got a swath of stuff cruising through there. Everybody else net up into New England, the net looking pretty good on up the eastern seaboard here this morning. A little bit down by way of the east side of maybe Florida, a net here this morning. Everybody else net back to the south and southwest. Net looking pretty good here to start your morning, at least by way of radar. Do have some spinners on the water. It looks like Sanla, whatever her name is, latest spinner, and net on Sonia. The latest on the waters net over on the Pacific side here. Looks like it's got a slight projected path over the next maybe 24, 48 hours or so. We'll see what it does as it congregates itself, but it looks like it's not a threat to any land in that whatsoever, at least at the moment. And then, of course, we got Melissa hanging out down here in the Caribbean here as of late, and it looks like the projected path on that guy nowhere close to the United States. That sucker has been way out to sea. And yet another storm in that. Looks like, I swear, it looks like we've had a shield up in that here for the better part of the season. None of these in that we've seen over the course of the hurricane season haven't come anywhere close to landfall. And this one appears to be no different. We'll keep tabs on that and see what it does. Looked like maybe it had Jamaica in its sights in that here in the last day or so. We'll see what it does. But for the moment, the projected path in that nowhere close to making any sort of landfall. That is going straight out to the Atlantic in that here over the coming days, apparently. No other spinners on the water over on the Atlantic here as the season and that kind of winds down here. And again, very quiet in regards to any sort of hurricanes net hitting the United States this year. From there, precip looks like folks net out again to the west and that maybe seeing a little scatter net snow perhaps in the elevations net if you're up in the northwestern portions of Washington state here, maybe picking up about an inch or so. Folks net Idaho coming into Montana, also seeing the frozen precip variety through there. Folks net coming across the southern portions of Montana, coming down into maybe the northern parts of Idaho and over into Wyoming through that corridor. Looks like some snow and fog net coming through those areas there. And it looks like folks net over to the Dakota's net coming through there. Looks like that's a rain event, at least for the moment. Couple, 2, 3, 4 tenths or so of an inch out of that system. And it looks like, yeah, pretty much rain. No snow in that in behind it. Colder weather and temperatures net in behind it. Folks net down to the southeast, though, again, from southern Illinois, southern Indiana, down to Kentucky, Tennessee, down into Alabama, Georgia, down in northern parts of Florida and the Carolinas, all through that area there. Picking up a little bit of rain in that here this morning. Couple, 2, 3, 5, 7 tenths of an inch. Some locally heavy spots in that over the east side of Tennessee and into the west side of the Carolinas. Folks now stretching down into Georgia, down through maybe about the Atlanta area, picking up a couple, 2, 3 tenths or so out of that area. Folks net up into Maine and that here this morning, picking up a little bit of trace rain in that here this morning as well. Folks net down in northern parts of Florida, picking up a little bit of rain and thunderstorm activity here this morning as well. And temperature-wise, again, for folks net down in Florida coming in right around the 80-degree mark or so, low to mid 80s net here on the morning. Northern part of the state coming in around the 70s. Georgia coming in the mid 60s and some 50s net mixed in. Folks net in the Carolinas, west side of the states around the 40s and 50s. East side of the state looks like around the 60-degree mark. Further north we get, the cooler it gets, and looks like some 50s net by the time you hit about the Maryland, Delaware area there. Pennsylvania in the 40s net. It looks like some 40s net pretty much all up into New England here this morning, all the way up into Maine. 40s net all the way up to the Canadian border and back down again to the northern parts of New York in the 40s. Looks like that is pretty much a case net across much of the state there. Pennsylvania in the 40s net here this morning to start your day. Folks net down in West Virginia in some 50s. Again, by the time you get down toward the coastal areas along the Gulf of America here this morning, looks like some 70s net along the coastal areas there. Alabama 70s, Mississippi in the 70s, looks like Louisiana in upper 60s. By the time you work your way back down toward Houston, looks like in the 70s net here this morning. And by the time you get down toward the southern portion of Texas here on the morning, looks like you're going to be in the low 80s net to start your day. Northern parts of Texas, though, going to be in the upper 50s, so just about a 30-degree swing there or so. Folks net Oklahoma, Kansas, on up through that corridor, looks like in the 50s, pretty much all the way up into the Canadian border. 40s net to the north, and by the time you work your way over into Minnesota, into Wisconsin, 40s net coming across those areas, 50s net by the time you work your way down toward the Milwaukee area. Back to the west, so it looks like Montana in the 40s, some 30s and 20s mixed in some spots net in northern parts of Montana here this morning. Folks net back toward Idaho, it looks like some 20s and 30s both, and looks like that's stretching down across much of Idaho, coming across into Wyoming, and maybe a little bit into the east side of Washington state. 30s net through there, some 20s net up in the elevations, and some 40s net back along the coast. 40s net down into Oregon there, it looks like some 20s net in the mix, and the folks net northern parts of California. 30s net here coming across top end of the state, and some 40s net by the time you work your way back toward east side or the west side of the state. Some 50s net in the mix as well. Folks net southern part of Cali and the 60s net here this morning, and looks like that is indeed the case for the folks down in the southwestern portion of Arizona here to start your morning as well. And it looks like by way of cloud cover net here this morning. High pressure net out to the west, still got some clouds coming in off the coast and down through Canada, across much of the northern parts of the country, down through the plains, Midwest, and down across the southeast, all going to be under some cloud cover net here today. Wisconsin, Michigan, northern parts of Illinois, Indiana, Ohio should see some sun in net here for a bit. Some sunny skies net perhaps over into Pennsylvania, Jersey, up in New York. Otherwise, some cloud cover net up into the rest of New England here on the day. Otherwise, a southwest net, New Mexico, Arizona, southern parts of Nevada, and southern parts of California. Going to see some sun here on the day. Here's a quick take a look at the weather and by way of any sort of power outages. Definitely had some storms net coming across into the Pacific Northwest net over the weekend here. And a quick refresh. See what we got left here. Looks like Washington State still got some power outages net left over from the weekend. I think at one point over, what was it, maybe Saturday? I think they had north of 90-some thousand folks without power. Oregon had about another 30,000 net as that system net kind of worked its way through. Texas had some power outages as well, but at the moment, about 68 or 9,000 folks without power across the country. Most of those in Washington, another 9,000 or so down in Florida. Georgia got about 7,600 or so, and that's it by way of any sort of power outages on the stoplight map net here this morning. And over to the smoke and fire maps net we go here to start your morning. Looks like folks net up in Canada still got plenty of fires net to contend with up in those parts. Dozens of fires net across Alberta and to the west. Still got some down around Calgary and a couple dozen or so fires through the middle portion of Canada there. Looks like folks net up in the Pacific Northwest still got dozens of fires over in those parts. Dozen or so up in northern parts of Washington State up around the Canadian border and way to the east of Seattle. Looks like folks over into Idaho, over to Montana. Oregon also got a couple dozen or so fires net through there. Dozen or so south of Portland area. Some of those maybe up in Washington, maybe picking up a little bit of dense smoke in some of those areas. So may see some poor air quality through there. California net looks like finally getting some fires net tamped down. It looks like maybe a fire net to the east side of Fresno through that area. Maybe kicking up a little bit of smoke. Another half dozen or so down to the very south and across the southeast. It looks like some of those fires net tamped down from recent days and weeks. Still got some down through Georgia, down through the Carolinas, coming back across Alabama, Mississippi, back into Arkansas. Still some down to Louisiana, and finally it looks like maybe starting to abate a little bit compared to what we've seen again in recent weeks and months where we've had hundreds of fires. Maybe some of those rains net we're seeing coming through there are starting to knock some of those down. Anyway, that being said, over to the markets we go this morning. It says futures soared to a new record high on U.S.-China deal optimism. And folks net over on the YouTube side. Appreciate you guys tuning in here this morning as always, and do encourage you to jump over to the other platforms net here on the morning. Get over to the Rumbles, the D Lives, the